Well, this isn't good. Just came to check on this hive, and looks like somehow the top was removed. I don't know how that happened. There was a big rock on top of it, a big brick on top of it. What's interesting is I can actually hear bees down there. I'm going to scrape all this mess off and give them some food and hope the hell something... Yeah, look, even there used to be insulation in here too, and the insulation's gone. Well, I just opened up the hive, tried to clean up some of the junk in there, and the bees came pouring out. So the bees are deep down in that hive, somehow still alive, even though the hive was completely exposed to the elements like this. I just hope there's enough bees in there that they're going to be able to survive the winter. But being pissed off like this is a good sign. It usually means that they're protecting their queen. So I used to have a piece of insulation on top of this hive, but I don't know where it is now. And I'm going to have to just put this, look at this, I'm going to have to put this on top, even though it's soaking wet. I'm going to have to come by later with some insulation. I can't even put that on the hive. I'll have to put it on upside down and come back later. I'm going to have to leave these bees alone for a little while and come back later with a new cover and some insulation. Now it's also possible, this does happen too, you can see I got a big brick on top, and what happens, sometimes you can see here there's a bit of, no, nothing there, but sometimes ice develops with thawing and freezing. The water seeps in underneath the brick and then freezes, and it becomes a big slick of ice, and if there's any tilt to the hives, this brick can slide on the ice, get to the edge, and plop the whole top off the hive. That can happen. And I don't know if that's what happened here, or if it's vandalism. But either way, those bees are fighting and defensive, so that's a good sign. Come on, give me a break, right? So they're in a bad mood. They're very defensive. They're flying around me now. They're trying to sting me. They're crawling on me. Those ones are okay. But, you know, this isn't good. So I came in and those bees were completely deep down in that hive just trying to keep their queen warm and dry. And somehow they did it. They're still alive. And hopefully the queen is still alive. I don't know how large the cluster is. I don't know anything. I just know that they're in there. And you know what? I'm going to plug up this hole too, just so they have only that one hole there. So, and now I've got to, I'm going to come back with some insulation and a ratchet strap, and I'm going to tie them down. I think if these hives are close to my house, I wouldn't bother. I'd just put rocks on them like I always do. But because these are at a distant location and I can't check on them every day, I think I just have to play it extra safe for hives like this from now on. And I'm just going to ratchet strap these babies down and hope for the best. So they've got, I put in probably, I'll look at it later when I come back later today, but I think they've got about 10-12 pounds of sugar extra in there now. They're not exposed to the elements anymore, so they should be happier. And I hope to God that they survive. Right now they're acting pretty pissed off, so that's good. That's a good sign. But man, oh man, beekeeping. It can be one body blow after another. All right, this is the hive that was had the top knocked off in the middle of the winter, and it's looking pretty good right now. So the plan is to dig into it. And I'm actually going to knock it down to a single deep and move it right over there. So let's see how that goes. Alright, it's actually looking pretty good. I got bees covering all of these top bars. Probably not completely covering, but getting there. So it looks good. And I'm going to pull out each frame and move it over here. Okay, so I just moved bees that were in this hive that is exposed to the weather. I knocked them down to a single deep, and they're over here. So these are all the dead bees that died over the winter. And it's a lot of bees. And many of them probably died when they got rained on that week. Rained and snowed on. But But otherwise, you know, they're in pretty good shape. I would say I've got about 5 or 6 solid frames of bees and about a frame, maybe 2 frames of open brood. No, not much, and a little bit of capped brood, but that's normal. But just so basically the queen is just starting to get going right now, but she's cooking, so she's looking good. They've got tons of honey, and they had tons of honey there in their box. They were in really, really good shape. They didn't need any candy at all. They're in fantastic shape. But anyhow, so that's it. So I'm going to clean up this mess, and this is reduced down to 1. There's a good number of bees in there right now. 2 frames of brood. I didn't spot the queen. I didn't really look for her, so I assume she's in there. A month from now, they should be in pretty good shape. They should be. I hope to see a month from now. I got 2 right now. Probably, you know, double that right now. I'd probably like to see at least 3 frames of capped brood at least, and maybe two or 3 more of just open brood. But I want to see half this box full of brood a month from now. That would be great. Probably won't, but and if I have to steal from another hive to boost them up, that's what I'll do. But right now, they look like they're in good shape. They're nice bees. They're gentle. So that's it. Yeah, I'm just going to clean up this mess, put a top back on it, and give them some pollen patties as well, and off we go. They don't have a lot of room to lay, so I'm not going to give them any sugar. They don't need any sugar. I'm just going to give them an extra pollen patty and hope for the best. So this colony was reduced to a single deep. This is the one that had the top blown off it earlier in the winter and was living with weather and rain and freezing rain and snow falling right into the hive for about a week. And somehow the bees were still alive, and I managed to save them. The first warm day I got in spring, I knocked them down to a single deep, just to keep them more comforted by the smaller space as the queen got back in business and started laying and doing her thing again. And that seems to be exactly what happened. As soon as I found this colony, or this hive with the top blown off it, I knew they needed extra help. They needed some help to get going. So I immediately just put sugar in them and gave them lots of pollen, or pollen supplement or pollen substitute, just to get the queen laying as soon as possible. And it seems to have worked. I reduced them down to a single deep, gave them sugar, mainly though gave them that pollen, and they've been devouring that pollen. And I can't remember what condition they were in a week ago when I last checked them, but today when I popped the top off, that bottom deep, every frame was full of bees, just packed with bees. So they're doing good. But at the same time, I don't want them to run out of honey. So I've got this top deep right here, full of 8 frames of basically solid honey. So they're not going to run out of honey. They're good for honey, and they're good for food now. I gave them a full deep of honey and that pollen patty on top. So really all they need is just pollen, and they've got everything else they need. The only other thing is the queen may not have a lot of room to lay. I think she does. I think a bottom deep is always, I don't think a queen can actually lay more than 10 frames. So even if they're confined to that single deep down there, they're in good shape. But what I plan to do is, the next chance I get, I'm going to come up here with some drawn comb, with some empty drawn comb, and so that the queen will have some room to lay if she needs to. And I'll put that right in the center of the top deep. So it'll be right in the center, surrounded by honey on all sides. The queen can come up, start laying. They can start devouring that honey and the pollen patty that I got in there, and they can start making bee bread for baby bees, and the queen can start laying, and everything's good. So anyhow, this colony is alive, and I'm impressed with it. Okay, this is the hive that had the this is the hive that had the top blown off it in the middle of the winter, and lots of bees up top right now. I'm going to put this pollen patty on. They've been eating this pollen patty, or protein patty, You see that they're digging into it. Nice. I'm going to put that right smack in the middle again. And they're looking good. They're a little bit on the defensive side, but that's sort of what I expected from these bees. Once you get bees that are disturbed in a major way over the winter, they tend not to forget that, and they get a little defensive. But anyhow, I've got, oh, they're in my face now. They're trying to sting me in the face. Anyway, they're very defensive, which is okay. It's a good behavior to have when a house is being torn to pieces by a human. Anyhow, so they've got a pollen patty. They're digging into that, looking good. I just put in 2 frames of more or less empty drawn comb in the middle because they didn't have any of that. They had 8 solid frames of honey, but I still wanted to give the queen some room to lay, and I just didn't. It's cold today, so I don't have time to mess around with them. So all I did was I just split those frames apart and stuck the 2 drawn combs in the middle. But these bees are looking really good. They're very defensive though. I can't mess with them at all. Yeah, so I've got this hive tied down with a ratchet strap. I got them strapped down because this is a windy spot. Having had the top blown off once, I don't want to have it happen again. So I will probably have these hives strapped down all the time from now on, just to be safe, because there's nothing worse than having the top blown off a hive, or almost nothing worse. The worst thing would be if the top got blown off and they died. This colony had the top blown off in the middle of the winter, so I immediately gave it raw sugar and pollen patties just to see if I could get the queen laying and get her going, building up as quick as possible so that they're in good shape coming into spring. Then I brought it back to life, and they about a month ago I looked into it. It was actually really warm, and I was able to do more or less a full inspection, not a complete full inspection, but anyway, I was able to knock the hive down to a single deep because they were only filling up 4 or 5 frames, and it's easier, I think, to build up a colony when it's in a small box. Small colony in a small box, a big colony in a big box. And so they were down to a small box for a little while, and then last week I checked them out and I opened up the single deep, and every frame was full of bees. So I said, okay, I didn't need to look for brood. Obviously the queen is laying and brood is expanding because there's more bees in the hive, and they're filling 10 frames, so they're getting back in shape. So having filled 10 frames, I said, okay, let's give them more room. And I threw another deep on top with 8 solid frames of honey up top, because that's all I had. I didn't have any drawn comb or any place for the queen to lay, so I just had to leave it like that for a week. And they went to town on that honey, cleared out some of that honey, ate the honey, and it looks like the queen may have been laying up top in the comb where they cleared the honey away. They were very defensive, but that's sort of what I expect from this hive, because once they've been exposed to the elements like they were in the winter time, and they have reason to be on guard, they will never forget that, and they tend to be pretty defensive when any kind of disturbance happens around the hive afterwards. So they're defensive bees, and it's a cold day. Anyhow, so I split up the 8 frames of honey and stuck in 2 frames of drawn empty comb. So there's basically 2 frames right smack in the middle for the queen to lay. Though it's still really interesting, even though the 8 frames that I had in there were nothing but honey, and there was just 2 blank ones on the end, on the sides, they still cleared up that honey to make room for the queen to lay, and there was a lot of bees up there. So right now I expect that, last week there was 10 bees in that bottom hive, probably lots of brood too, so there's probably still down there, but there's so many bees now that they're able to go up and to clear out that honey and to eat up that pollen patty on the top of the top bars, so that anyway, it's looking good.